Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. Manchester United through to the last 16 of the Europa League after beating FCSB away 2-0. A pretty comfortable win in the end. First half wasn't exciting, second half much better. Joining me as always is Mr. Joe Smith. Make sure you're getting involved in the chat and the comments and hit that like button as well, please, people. And if you've not done so already, subscribe to the channel. Joe, I mean, it wasn't the most exciting game, but it was a nice little win. Good to see a couple of goals, clean sheet, and made, relatively easy work of it in what could have been a tricky tie.
We've made relatively easy work of most of the Europa League now.
Yeah.
I know we drew those first three games, and obviously not every single game was incredible, but you look at the results, it was 3 draws, 5 wins. That's good stuff.
No, it is.
And again, we can dig into each individual result, and there were ups and downs. Even the Rangers game, look at the most recent one, we basically gave it away with 2 minutes to go and had to win it again. But we've done really well, and we've ended the competition or ended the group stage unbeaten. I think we're the only side to end the group stage unbeaten. It's good stuff. And tonight I thought the first half was a little bit lacking entertainment, but you're not going to necessarily be entertained every single minute of every game that you watch. The second half we played really well, made a load of chances, scored 2 goals, probably should have scored 3 or 4 in all honesty. I was really impressed with that second half. And when you think what we've been like this season and what we've been like over the last, even since Amorim arrived, United have won 5 of the last 6 games now. That's crept up on us. That's like out of nowhere almost. We've won 5 of the last 6, and I'm really happy with that. And even if it's like we always think, small wins here, small wins there, that we shouldn't have won that one, we got a bit lucky. But all of a sudden, you win 5 out of your last 6, and that's a decent run. So I'm really happy with the performance tonight. Loads of possession, way more chances than them. Won the game comfortably, through comfortably. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything you said, to be honest with you, bro. I don't think there's any point in looking for something to moan about when there isn't anything to moan about. And God knows we've had enough to moan about this season as Manchester United fans. But first half, a little bit touchy, wasn't it? There wasn't a lot happening. United had a couple of opportunities. Mainoo had an opportunity. Rasmus Højlund had a header. They had a couple of opportunities as well, but nothing sort of clean cut or, clear cut, I should say. Second half, United made a couple of changes, didn't we? Alejandro Garnacho coming on for, I think it was for Tyrone Malacia. Yeah. That seemed to make a big difference, didn't it? He got on the ball a lot, Garnacho. He was sort of running at him. He almost scored straight away, didn't he? Yeah. With the one way he went through and obviously clipped the post. But he kept going and played his part in the win. And Diogo Dalot with a goal. Good to see him getting on the score sheet. It's something that he's not like renowned for, but he pops up with the odd goal. And Mainoo, I thought, played very well tonight. Yeah, getting the second. I thought it was a really good game from Mainoo, and he's had a difficult season this season because it's been fits and starts. He's been in and out of the team. There's been sort of more scrutiny on Mainoo this campaign because obviously he's not this unknown kid that's just burst on the scene. He's a player that helped win an FA Cup final and then went all the way to the Euros final. So there's a lot more expectation on him. And sometimes he hasn't quite been the same player we saw last season as he's just adjusting, which you can expect. But tonight I thought it was a really good performance from Cobb.
Yeah, played really well, got in some good areas, consistently got in, was available for that cutback. Yep. Probably should have maybe even scored another goal as well.
Good point.
But the finish, it's almost like he learnt his lesson from the first one. The first one gets cut back to him and he strikes it well, but it gets it just over the bar. Yep. The second one comes to him and he just gives it that FA Cup final finish where he almost sort of stabs it along the ground into the back of the net, sort of ends the game. But the Dalot goal, there was the fact that goal went in the way it did gives me optimism for the future.
Why?
Because the fact that our wing back is putting tap-ins in at the back post is a massive difference to where his positioning has been, how we've created chances in recent weeks under Amorim. But we were saying before the game, I don't see enough from our wing backs in terms of goal threat. No. Wing backs aren't just full backs that are a bit further forward. They are goal threats, or they should be. And I don't see that from Dalot enough. The fact that he's up in the box when it was Mainoo who squared it, wasn't it? The fact that he's up in the box on the last man, a yard out from their goal, side-footing it in with an easy finish, is a really good step forward in terms of how dangerous Dalot can be in attacks for us. And we did another thing today that Amorim, I think, will be really happy with, and I'm certainly really happy with, is we actually kept the ball in their third for large periods of that game, especially the second half. That's why the likes of Christian Eriksen, you look through the team, Eriksen, Mainoo, Bruno, even sort of Dalot and Malacia, it's not a particularly quick team. It's not a particularly quick sort of front six. but we weren't exposed for our lack of pace because we actually just kept the ball.
No.
You can't, outpace us if you ain't got it. And we really did a good job of that. We can play to our players' strengths by keeping the ball better, by playing the ball in the final third better, and we made way more chances and actually looked really good. So there was a lot of things that impressed me tonight, but Dalot being on his last man and tapping the ball in at the back post, if you can do that 5 or 6 times a season, you might have a position there. Like, that was really good for me.
No, I agree. We're getting some of the comments and I'll come back to you. Ian Warren says, we have more and more control every game and more settled lineups, getting there slowly, but I see a system. Quite a few people are commenting on Kobbie Mainoo. Andy Phillips says 100%. Kobbie buttered them up. Munib Siddiqui says Mainoo in an absolute 10. Real ballers, no. Linville B says Mainoo is a 10 in this system. A couple of people said it. Marcus, I said it earlier. Bruno and Mainoo need to swap roles in the system. We were talking about that, weren't we, pre-game? And I think the issues there, do you lose something from Bruno taking him further back? It's not even as much a question of can Mainoo playing there. It's, is it better to see Bruno and obviously Ahmad when he starts playing in that role? Also, I quite like Ugarte and Mainoo playing in a midfield two together. But listen, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't be annoyed or disappointed if I saw Mainoo given more opportunities in that 10 role.
No, absolutely. And we said it before the game, and my concern was, what do you lose by, not by putting Mainoo in there, but taking either Ahmad or Bruno out?
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to the last point. This is why keeping the ball, in a system like this, keeping the ball in their final third, or certainly in their half, is so important, because Bruno and Mainoo basically both got to play as 10s tonight. R16 got to play as a 10 as well.
Yeah.
Ahmad got to play as a 10 as well. Garnacho did as well. Because everyone is within a bank of about 20 feet between the edge of their box and sort of the edge of the centre circle. That area there is where most United players were most of the evening, which means you do get the creative side out of Bruno Fernandes. You do get it out of Mainoo. You do get it out of Ahmad. You get it out of everyone. The problem is with Mainoo when he plays as a 10, or Bruno, is if the game is stretched like it has been and we're losing possession and we're having to counter-attack and back and forth, none of those players are good at running into open space. They don't have the pace for it. No. That's why Rashford's been so good, or was so good under Solskjaer, because he's playing into open space. Where Mainoo is so good is in tight spaces, when there's no one around him and he's got 2 or 3 opposition players. He can dribble out or find a pass where most players can't. And we got to see that tonight. Because we could compress the team, we could compress where the game was taking place. And again, it goes back to holding the ball and holding it in their half. So many things sort of snowball from that. Control the game, and you get the best out of everyone all of a sudden. What a coincidence. But that's what Amorim's been saying for months. We need to control games and control them in their half. And that way you get to see, Bruno's ability, Mainoo's ability, Ahmad, Garnacho, everyone look better tonight because they're not having to sprint up and down all the time, and you can actually see their strengths.
It's good to see. I completely agree. It's good to see Academy Scoop in the chat. It says Berbatov versus Blackburn-esque, a rival for Kobbie's finish tonight. Good knowledge there for a young lad. There's a video with Academy Scoop, on the Academy Review, looking at Aiden Heaven. Go and check that out as well. When you look at what he's trying to do and the fact he's doing it, and this little run that we put together, and yes, we have to put it into context of the teams that we've beaten during this run, Rangers, FCSB, some club called Arsenal. It's not always been against top tier opposition, but it is a run. It is winning games. There is, a little bit of momentum there, which is what we've been crying out for. Can you see more now what he's trying to do? He might not be getting it right all the time, and players might be doing it. Can you see more of that, or is it still too early to really see what Ruben Amorim is trying to do? Do you feel like we're getting there a little bit?
You definitely are.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we're like nearly at the end of it.
No.
But the fact that we're seeing signs, we certainly are. Like, look tonight, how many times did a number 10 or a fullback make a darting run between centre-back and fullback of the opposition toward the goal line and cut it back to the 18-yard line or to the penalty spot?
Yeah.
Mainoo had 2. I think Garnacho did it 2 or 3 times. We saw Bruno have a shot from there. I think R16 had a shot from there as well. Mainoo's goal was from that. It was like constant. And that's a running behind and a cutback that isn't new. Man City have been doing it for a decade or more. And United, for some reason, could never quite get it as a consistent thing because the runs off the ball weren't good enough. We did it loads tonight. Even if it's just one thing, you have to have noticed that was happening all the time.
Yeah.
You'd be blind not to. That was a consistent thing that we tried to do over and over again, and it was successful over and over again. We should have scored 3 or 4 goals doing it. So even if it's just that one thing, let alone anything else we've spoken about, it's clear that Amorim's getting us to do that because we didn't used to do it, and now we do all the time. So yeah, he's obviously a man with tactics and ideas, and I think that most managers have tactics and ideas, but when you're losing games, people pretend they can't see any positives.
Yeah.
Whereas at least when you win, even if they're not convincing wins, you get to focus on those positives without being called deluded. So we can see that tonight comfortably. But runs in behind, cut back to the penalty spot. We scored a goal from it. Perfect.
I know. It's only FCSB, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not that seminal or anything like that. But when Garnacho and Mainoo were celebrating together, when Mainoo jumps on Garnacho's back, it kind of saddened me that we might be seeing Garnacho leave in the next few days.
It was good tonight,
Garnacho, it did, because I just think it's what United are about, and the academy. Them two together as well have obviously come through at similarist times, both in that FA Youth Cup winning side, of course. I know Garnacho's a little bit older than Mainoo. Mainoo obviously come into the side about a year after Garnacho, but they've been there, they've won the FA Cup, and I just think it'd be, in an ideal world, you just want to keep Garnacho and make additions in the summer. That'd be the perfect scenario for me. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen though, does it? It does feel like he's going to go, and it is a little bit sad that we've got a player that, I'm not saying, because he played well today and for 45 minutes against FCSB, we should be keeping him. My argument has been for a long time, ideally, you'd want to keep a player like that who you've nurtured, who's come through the ranks, who's done well, and who's, form's maybe plateaued a little bit, but there are mitigating circumstances, and he's still obviously a very good, talented player. It
is, and it's a shame that I'm not saying we're forced into it like we've got no alternative, but if United want some funds now, or even big funds in the summer, players like Garnacho, as we all know, are the best things to sell from a purely business on the books perspective. Garnacho's a brilliant thing to sell, and it's a shame, and it's shit that it has to be like that with FFP, and it's a shame with Garnacho as well, because maybe his form wouldn't have stalled as much if this wasn't going on behind the scenes. He looked really good tonight, and he looked dangerous straight away, and he probably should have. Well, he definitely should have scored. You can maybe criticise him for that. But you don't want to have to sell academy players, because what really should be happening with Garnacho is, has his form plateaued a little bit? Yes. Right, you've got 18 months to unplateau it. Start going upwards again. You will bring out the team, we'll put someone else in. You shouldn't even have to be thinking about his United future right now. And instead, that's all he'll be thinking about. So it's a shame that that's the situation we find ourselves in. And, some of that's up to the rules, some of that's up to the way we've been managed. But it's a shame that it's Garnacho and us as fans that have to kind of live with that reality.
So many players do that as well. Plateau a little bit. Ronnie did it. Yeah. I'm not saying Garnacho's as good as Ronaldo before anyone gets excited or gets, starts trolling me. I'm just saying he came from Sporting, smashed it in his first few games. Then he had this spell where it looked like he wasn't going to kick on. Then obviously he kind of did okay, didn't he? Yeah. And you want to see the youngsters you brought through given that opportunity. But like you pointed out, Joe, it's if we want to spend money, and where else is it coming from? You're not going to get the funds to go big in the transfer window after selling Christian Eriksen and Casemiro, unfortunately. And in an ideal situation with the way things are, you'd get a loss of money for Marcus Rashford, but I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll have to wait and see. But listen, if you're not going to bring anyone in January, I'd at least like us to keep Garnacho to the end of the season. I really would. If not, to be honest with you, I'd like us to keep hold of him. Hands up for the Panther says, need to protect players like Mainoo, Garnacho, or all you players. Don't want a situation what happened to Rashford. Everything under scrutiny, insults, bullying, affecting mental health. Give time. Red Devil says, love the way Jay says trolling, proper mank and that. We know who we can have next round. We can have, well, we don't know which one it's going to be, but it can be one of, I think, Midtjylland, Alkmaar, Sociedad and Galatasaray. And we've got Celtic.
One of them four. That's all it says, unfortunately. And you have to eat it to make sure the evidence is gone.
Have you got a preference? Do you care? Who do you want to see?
Midtjylland would be the one that I'd choose. Yeah. I don't like playing Spanish teams in knockout competitions. It's just always hard. I mean, it's not always hard work, but they have this weird, bizarre grip on European competitions, don't they? So I would like to avoid Sociedad if possible. Galatasaray, again, that would be a bit of a nightmare away, but we should beat any of them. Really. Yeah. Do you have a preference?
Is it 2 legs the next round?
Yeah.
I'd rather play Sociedad in over 2 legs than one.
Yeah.
I'd rather play them over 2 legs than in the final, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
If that was a scenario, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think in a final they could turn up and beat us. I think over 2 legs, if we turn up, we'll be okay. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, of course it makes a lot of sense.
I'd
Spanish
rather
teams don't lose European finals.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to face them in a final. I think it'd be memories of Villarreal in our back of our minds. But listen, if we play this team, if we play as well as we can, then there's every reason to think we can win this competition. It's just a big if. Do you know what I mean? I'm not just saying that because we've beaten FCSB, but look at the quality of players we've got. Look at the opposition in the Europa League. There's every reason to think that if United turn up, we can beat any of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, let's not get too carried away with how bad we are on our day. On our day, we're capable of it. Anthony Bitter says, Galatasaray, get out of the way. Okay. Sociedad game will be rigged, says Tom Harty. Frank Aff says, we can't play Spurs until the final.
Is that right?
Yeah, it must be.
What, is that because the way the draw is or because they're English?
I mean...
Just the way the draw is?
I think it's just the way the draw is, I think so. Yeah.
Would you take that right now?
What's that?
Tottenham final.
Yeah, I would you?
But Big Ange always wins something in his second season. That's
do you remember when we were saying like Jose Mourinho always wins the title in his second season?
And he did.
And then Manchester United came in, or Jose Mourinho. Yeah, Jose Mourinho's always in the title in the second season, or Jose Mourinho always wins something until he went to Spurs. Like, it feels like, what's the opposite of an immovable object? An unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. It feels like something would go in.
A stoppable force meets a
movable object, yeah. Because it's like the two jinxed clubs in the modern era. Something goes wrong here, doesn't it? Like,
although,
do you know what I mean? Like, we both lose somehow. Do you know what I mean? UEFA just go, do you know what? Forget it, the competition's null and void. No one wins.
This ain't going to happen.
No one's having a trophy. You can both fuck off.
Yeah. Although technically, Jose might have won the Premier League that season once the 115 charges settle out.
Yeah,
did win the league that year. So
a very good point. As always, my friend Joe. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you. I've enjoyed what has been one of Manchester United's best ever European campaigns.
This is one of the great group stages of all time. 8 undefeated, 5 wins out of 8. What more can you ask for? This is crazy.
I mean, you can't get better than 5 wins out of 8. Literally, I
can't imagine anything that could be. This is insane.
Go and check Joe out on the Sloppy Joe's podcast. You know what I found as well. Go and check out all the other videos on the channel. Don't forget as well, we're gonna have all the reactions from Steve, Andy Tate, and everyone else. And plus, we're going to be back in the morning with the news. So make sure if you're not doing so already, you are subscribing to the channel. That's been Joe. I've been Jay. This is a Bruno review. Manchester United, the Reds go marching on, hopefully all the way to the Europa League final, where we'll beat Spurs. Thanks for watching.